Sam, thanks very much for coming in. So how far are we away from making some substantial progress, either in containment, in developing a vaccine? Where's the focus?
Sure. Good morning, first of all. This is a pretty horrific disease, obviously, so everything that can be done should be done to try and contain it and hopefully eradicate it. The reality with vaccine development is that it can be really fast if you are not too stringent. For instance, let's take an example of dengue. Dengue is a pretty big disease in Southeast Asia. It's one of the typhoid type of
dengue fever. Yeah.
That's right, yeah. So there's been vaccines in development for it, but it's been 10 years. There are 5 different dengue viruses. You have to make sure that it's got good cover, etc. So there's that extreme of the spectrum, and a case like such as this, where you're not really going to be able to test the vaccine's ability to prevent disease in a very large environment in numbers of people. So what you're going to have to contend with is that we're going to try this in man, show that it induces an immune response, a protective, potentially protective response, and say, right, that's what we've got.
How long do these trials take place, Sam?
These can be done in 3 to 6 months. And these are healthy volunteers, they're not sick people, so it's really rapid.
Yes, because one of the reasons I was reading that progress could be slowed to some extent is the fact that, obviously for very good reason, containment activity means that borders are being closed and people are being restricted from moving, but that can lead to problems in terms of actually accessing people with the illness to do tests.
Yeah, unfortunately, you have that problem in Africa all the time, you know, access to doctors, access to some remote villages, etc. Remember, for vaccines, what you're trying to do is it's actually part of containment. You kind of create a ring of immunized people, medical personnel, people who come in touch with the family of the infected people. So that sort of helps there. How much it can help a very difficult to reach rural area in Africa, that's just something that's actually nothing to do with the vaccine. It's the fact that that's the reality of, unfortunately, life. What these vaccines can do in the end is it's going to be likely to be something like smallpox. We had a lot of smallpox talk just after the atrocities of 9/11. Where there was a lot of worry about the potential use of smallpox as bioterrorism. Ebola fits that pretty well too. It's highly infective. It's not so bad as smallpox, which can be transferred a little bit easier than Ebola can. But still, it's a very, the mortality rate is very high. So I think there's potential here for whoever develops a vaccine that's potentially protective, i.e. gives you an immune response, to then be used by governments, etc., as a stockpile, as a measure of having something at hand in case something happens.
Does Glaxo do this mainly for philanthropic reasons?
Well, Glaxo is a for-profit organization, so it's unlikely that it's doing it just for that reason. However, it's got the means to do that, but I think Glaxo, having been involved, they were one of the few people who were contracted to develop anthrax vaccines. Now, anthrax doesn't happen. It's just there as a potential security measure. I think there could be money to be made out of this vaccine. In that, I mean, it's not a big money spinner. It's not a billion-dollar game here, but it is something that they could use and be contracted by governments to produce stockpiles.
Does it benefit them to be associated as the company that's developed a vaccine to combat Ebola? That in itself has to be worth something to Glaxo.
It is. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, they're there to help people who are sick. The reality of how much a halo effect this will have and how long that halo will last next time they report quarterly results that miss, and, you know, we have to kind of put that next to it. But at the end of the day, this is a good thing to be doing. There will probably be some profit to be made out of it. But at the moment, I think what we need to do is think about the patients and the people who are suffering pretty severe disease.